The What to Read Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show. Welcome back to the show. I am so happy to have you back. Today is a Sunday, March favorite episode. So I'm going to talk about all of the favorite books that I loved and enjoyed this past month, what I read, what books have me on chokehold, and what you should pick up next to read next. But before we get started, I want to talk about today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Epigraph Literary Book Festival. Epigraph Literary Festival is a 3-day virtual event that introduces readers and authors with new and upcoming books and hosts genre and lifestyle theme sessions. There's a Spring Summer Festival in April that's happening April 27th to 29th to 2023, and there's a Fall Winter Festival in September. You don't want to miss out the happy hour sessions at the end of each day. If you have an idea of a good time spending with book people, you don't want to miss it. You get to connect with other readers. You get to discover new books are coming up in the season. You also get to hear about ideas and sessions. I'm going to do a plug-in for my session. I am hosting a session about audiobooks as self-care, as a form of self-care. So we're going to have opportunities to tell you how you can incorporate audiobooks, how to get low and free class audiobooks, and how you can actually use them as a way to practice self-care and add more reading. So if you want to join us, the festival is happening April 27th to 29th. You can register at epigraphLitFest.com. And if you miss the festival because you're listening to this at a later date, you can catch your replays with the link also at Epigraph Lit Festival. Or you can join us live for the next festival. So you can actually wait for September if you're listening to it. So it's just a fun time. I really love this. I've attended the past 2 festivals and they're a lot of fun. I love they're engaging. They're easy to sit down and listen to. You also get to connect with other readers, and it's just a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed us in the Epigraph Lit Festival. All right, so we have 13 books, actually 14 books I read this month. I was going to say this year. This year, my stats are 57 books I have read so far. But of those, my reading, as you probably noticed, has slowed down dramatically in February and March. What am I talking about? I don't know. We're going to go back to it. So March, I read 13 books, but I'll talk about one more extra book that I read yesterday, April 1st. That's still part of the whole series, so it makes sense. So let's backtrack to what happened in March and where I am. So for the first week of March, I was actually in Puerto Rico. I was actually I spent about 3 weeks in Puerto Rico from February 10th to March 3rd. So I basically spent 3 weeks there, reading, listening to things, going to work, spending time with my family, and it was great. It was a really nice slow down period. I was reading, but I was not reading as fast as I was normally reading, and I was not listening to audiobooks, which is what January was. January, I listened to 19 audiobooks. And I was listening to a faster speed of audiobooks. And I was it was great. And then I went to Puerto Rico and I was okay, I don't have the place or time to read because I listen to them on my speaker and I just blast them. And I'm with other people, so I cannot do that. I know I should get headphones, but I don't like headphones. So we'll try it. So that's pretty much what happened to my reading in February. And so started March, I was still in that same mode. I was reading, slowing down, and trying to figure out what was working, what was not working. And so I recorded an episode with Becky, which aired last week or 2 weeks ago, which is a Kindle Unlimited sports romance, guide to sports romance. And so I was interested in sports romance. I read it before, I liked it, and I was well, let's give it a try again. And so I was trying to figure out let's try what people are hyping up. What are the top 100 books people are downloading? And then we give it a try. They're sports romance. So in that sense, I read Hail Mary by Candy Steiner, which is enemies to lovers, second chance romance, found family, college football, and whatnot. And it was okay. It was good. Overall, the series is not that bad. It's actually if you like sports romance, it's a good series to listen to. Then I read Offside by Avery Keelan, and I was intimidated about the size of this book. It's 500 pages long, and I was I don't know what to do, but I'm just gonna give it a try. So I read it. I read half of of it in the airplane. So I read like 300 pages in the airplane. And this is like a hockey romance where she was dating a hockey player. Her brother is a hockey player, and the guy breaks up with her. He's an asshole. And she happens to rebound with her brother's rival or her ex rival from another team. And he's so good for her. And so she's like, holy crap, like he's really good for me. Like, what am I doing? So she starts dating him, and there's like all this conflict because she's like, you're not supposed to, he's our rival, blah blah blah. And she's like, well, I don't care. So I really liked it. The first half was strong. The second half was a little bit weaker. And I noticed that's for a couple of these books. Like I really was a strong first half. I'll read the 50% and then I just like lost interest. So I finished that one up. And then I went to Right Man, Right Time, Megan Quinn. And the reason why I picked this one up is Megan Quinn promised a Jacob's Ladder. And Jacob's Ladder is a piercing in the penis. And I was like, it's a multiple piercings in the penis. I was like, how is it going to work? Like, are we going to talk about it? Like, when he got it, what else stuff? So that was not talked a lot. Like, it was mentioned in passing, but it was not talked to. And I was like, we should have a conversation. But that's like my critique about this book. But the book was so fun. Like, I was laughing out loud, and I don't laugh out loud in a lot of books. Like, I really don't. So this book was like a fun rom-com. It's called Right Man, Right Time. It's by Megan Quinn. It's a college student age gap romance with a hockey player. He's like 10 years older. She still lives in a dorm. He goes to visit her in a dorm. It's adorable. It's a fake relationship. It works. They have like this. She has verbal diarrhea, and she explains his their meet cute, and it's just hilarious. Like it's just like funny, and it's fun, and it's just fun and mature. It's just really good. So it was a good time. So I really enjoyed Right Man, Right Time. So this is worthwhile. It's actually still in the top 100, like in the top 10 book of the year. So, and then I read Consider Me by Becca Mack, which I listened to it because the audiobook, along with with Opposite Side, which was a long book. This is like a 500-page long book. And unlike Upside, where I was engaged, this one I was not engaged when I was reading it. So I was like, let me just pick up the audiobook and see if I can actually finish. And it kept me company for a few days, and it was fine. It's just a lot of drama. But this one is a reformed playboy who finds his match, and he's like, he only has eyes for the heroine. That's the best way I describe it. It's a golden retriever romance. It's good. It's just really long. And if you like long books with character development, then this book is for you. If you like books that have a lot of more plot, this book may not be for you. And then I ended up reading two Catherine Amara's books because she was like popping up in the top 100, and I was like curious. So I read The Temporary Wife by Catherine Amara, which is it's actually, this whole series is about arranged marriages, but this one's a marriage convenience and is like a workplace romance. I felt it is similar to Marriage and Conditions, Terms and Conditions, sorry, by Lauren Asher. So it's a little similar, but it's a little different. But it was good. And then I listened to Until You by Catherine Amara, which is available on Hoopla. So if you have access to Hoopla, you might be able to get Dr. Offside, I think, or and Until You. And Until You is about two hackers who don't know each other. It's kind of like hidden identities. You got mail, and then they're basically he happens to be her brother's best friend, and so she ended up working for him and ended up living with him, and they're like mutual pining and mutual loving, and so it's really good. So that was a fun audiobook to listen to. And then we go into going to go to start with the rest of the day. So rest of the month, for the month of February, my friend Amy and Sarah from Really Into This and Novel Gossip, we were just chit-chatting our group chat, and we're like, we should do a book club together. And I was like, sure. So we ended up we ended up forming a book club, which you can join us. If you want to join us, is What to Read Next blog / book club. And it's do you even read romance? And so the whole point of the book club is we're going to talk about Kindle Unlimited titles, or like titles are like indie romances titles are high heat, high steam, and they're fun. And we're going to have opportunity for you to meet other readers, talk about recommendations. We have a Discord chat, along with weekly or every other week of meeting sessions with the authors. So we'll have, like, if you read some of our picks, you will have an opportunity to do a Q&A with the author to get to know the information, to know like the story and whatnot. So this last month's pick was, the trope was age gap. So we picked 3 books around the theme of the trope of age gap. So Sarah's picks was Praise, by Sarah Kate, which I had read last year and it was great. It's ex-boyfriend's dad's trope with the sex love team. Then Amy's pick was Ignite by Melanie Harlow, which is like small town romance, grumpy, sunshine, single dad, age gap romance, and their neighbors. And then I picked Keepsake by Amy Oliveira, which is a age gap brother. It's best friends brothers. She actually happens to be the guardian of their of his nieces and nephews, and so they have to come together. It's kind of like another single parent romance, but it's a little more angsty, and there's like some trigger warnings of like, death of a loved one and like abusive marriage and all those different things. But we had our meeting with Sarah Kate last week. We'll post it on YouTube sometime soon. And then we had Ignite this week, April 5th at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll meet with Melanie Harlow. We're going to meet at 7:30, so you can actually talk about the book before we meet with Melanie. And then Keepsake, we'll do it at 3:30, at 2:30 on April 12th. And all the information is available at whattoreadnextblog.com/book clubs. Just join us. You're more than welcome to. You can join any one of the books. Our theme for April is romantic suspense, so just enjoy it. And then we're gonna go into the arcs, because I read these 2 arcs a month, so I can give you an idea. I used to read arcs all the time, and then I got really tired of them, so now I just treat myself to 2 a month, and that feels like the happy medium. So the best thing I can tell you is that I read 90s teen stars, finding love in their 30s and 40s. So the first book that I read is Once More for the Feeling by Elisa Sussman, and it's kind of like a Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, JC Chasez like fan fiction, except that Justin, well, we know Justin is an asshole, but Britney is Jewish, and instead of like conservatorship and being like still in the limelight, she just go off the limelight. She just takes out. She's not in the conservatorship. She just like hides her stuff, and then decides to make a comeback going by Broadway. So if you like Broadway shows, if you like musicals, then this book is for you. It's good. The first 50% are strong, then the second 50% are not so strong, but it was good. So if you like Britney, you want to root for Britney, this book is for you. The other book that I read was The Daydreams by Lauren Hankin, and the best way I can describe it is like Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, like late 90s, early aughts TV shows, and having a reunion and having like the stardom that comes with it, and then all bringing apart, and then having a reunion like 12 years later, 14 years later, and be like, what the hell just happened? And so we see like the archetypes of teen stars, like, the up and coming author, the up and coming actor, the one who's like a hot mess, the one who just like does not want to go be part of it, and the influencer. And we see dual timeline, what happened in the past, what happened in the present, and all the things collide. It was good. It was women's fiction. It's not romance. There's some romance there, but it's just not the main story. So if you're looking for that kind of like nostalgia of 90s and early aughts, these 2 books are for you. All right, so we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. The reason why I have not been reading a lot of books, because those books are 400, 500, 700, 800 pages. So I've been reading the Zodiac Academy binge. I think I mentioned it in like yesterday's episode, or Friday's episode, that which is the episode with Book Boyfriends with Leslie. I mentioned that I was reading Zodiac Academy, and yes, the beginning of the books, the writing is pretty bad. Like it's not a good writing. Like, but they're addictive. Like the first couple books, you're like, why am I reading this? These are bullies. Like these are like really archetype of like stereotypes, and like what is happening. But when you read the first 2 books, you're trying to understand the world. Like you're just like the twins. The Zodiac Academy is about 2 twins who are lost princesses who are thrown into this Fey world. They've been living in the mortal world for most of their life, and we throw into the Fey world, and to be told like your people are vying for your stuff, and so they're learning how to be Fey. They're learning how to use their magic, they're learning elements, and they're so powerful that people are scared of them. And so the first two books, we're trying to figure out who they are, what is happening. There are people vying for the throne. They want them to get kicked out. They want them to not go through, and that's what happens. And then we realize, I'm like, okay, like it's great and fine, but what's the point? you know and then we start realizing, like, we get to the first three books, we get to book three, which is the reckoning. So the twins have to get to this point in the school where they make the reckoning, where they can actually be part of they're going to be part of the whole world. And so getting to the reckoning, they're like, the first couple of books you're trying to figure out who they are, and then reckoning happens, and like the world shifted because we realize more information has been provided, and we start realizing that there are other forces that don't want them there, and that the heirs, the guys who are opposing them, have to work with them. And so we are going through book three, which is the reckoning. We realize who their order forms are, because that's another part. We realize like what they're supposed to do, like how powerful they are, and like what they can do. And then book four is a Shadow Princess, because we have a fifth element. So the elements they have is air, water, fire, and earth. And so there's a fifth element, which is the shadows. And so the Shadow Princess is that element in that point. And there's like events that happen. So the books are like, they're meaty books. There's a lot of stuff going on. So they're pretty much character development and kind of like mundane things. And then the last 10% is like when the magic happens, and you just like want to know what the hell happens, because the world turns upside down and ends with a cliffhanger. So book four is about that. It just ends with a cliffhanger, like major stuff happened. And then book five, you get to realize, and I finished this one yesterday. That's where it's like, it counts as yesterday, because it counts as March, because it's like I read it in March. Book five is basically like, so two of the couples, the boys at some point, they hook up with the girls hook up with other boys, and it's all these different things. And there's one guy and one of the twins have like this star-crossed curse happen to them, and it's like mutual pining, mutual angstiness. Like it's so angsty, and it's so good. The angsty, like I don't know, I haven't read an angsty book in a while, and I think I'm living for it. So it ends with like another cliffhanger, and so I'm at book six. I'm 30%, and I can tell you it's about 240%, 240 pages I read, just in a couple hours. So books are 800 pages long. So this is what I'm doing. It's addictive writing. You can't stop reading. You cannot explain what you're doing. As much as I would like to explain what's happening, I can only tell you that it's just like you get immersed in this world and you just don't want to come out of it. I don't want to read other books. I don't want to try other things. I'm listening to these books. I'm only reading other books, quote unquote. I've been reading some nonfiction just to kind of like offset, but pretty much this is my whole identity. It's Zodiac Academy. So yeah. So I hope there's two more books out there, 7 and 8, but I don't know if I'm gonna read 8, because we're expecting book 9 at some point this year, and that's the final book. So I don't know if I'm gonna read those. And I think 8 is 1,200 pages long. 1,200 pages. You understand? 1,200 pages. But yeah, so that's where my reading has gone. If you have suggestions or books for me to add to TBR, feel free to email me at laura@whattoreadnextblog.com, and I'll just make sure I have time and add them to my TBR. So again, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a review, and if you want to, or share with your friends. And also, if you want to join us in the Epigraph Lit Festival, it is available. The signups are free. It's on April 27th, 29th. Our session, the audiobook session, is going to be April 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So lots of good stuff. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.